Okay, I'm finally putting some paint on this mofo. It's Saturday, I believe January 11th is what it is. And I was supposed to be here yesterday, Friday, but my car broke down. I'm driving my little red Echo to work. I had the truck the previous day, but I thought I could save a little money, drive the Echo, and it didn't work out so well because it broke down on the way here. And so I spent the day I ended up in Pacoima. I got off the freeway. That won't mean anything to you unless you're from the San Fernando Valley. But Pacoima is a fairly rough neighborhood. I had to get off the 118 freeway at Laurel Canyon because the radio had gone off, and as I stared puzzled at the dashboard, it very soon began to buck. The engine did. The dashboard didn't buck, fortunately, but the engine did, and I had to get myself off the freeway immediately and get a plan. I ended up in a little neighborhood in Pacoima. I really didn't know where I was, and none of the neighbors spoke any English at all. So, I asked everybody I could find what town I was in because I had to call AAA, and I wanted to give the gal or whoever answered the phone some kind of directions, but she figured it out and sent me a tow truck. I felt like I was being punished a little bit because I had just done a video here the day before saying that the problem with the disappearing middle class was being exaggerated, and my main point with that was that it's being exaggeratedly blamed on the 1%, but I drift a little bit. I don't have any notes with me, and I'll wander off wherever, into whatever direction seems fruitful and fun at the moment. So I felt like the universe was a little bit saying, okay, here's a reminder, there's a lot of poor people out here today. And so I stand duly chastened on that particular point, because certainly I was in a neighborhood where a goodly number of cars there are not what one would call late model. Although I was there during work time, the only cars in the neighborhood that were there are probably not the ones transporting anybody anywhere, but never mind that. I managed to get the car fixed, and now I'm back here working a little bit. But what I wanted to talk about was I've been sort of talking about money and the different aspects of it. It's really because Mr. Obama has said that really the thing he has to talk about now is income disparity. That's his big thing. And I feel like it's going to be the big topic for a while. And it's been the big topic forever among my friends in the folk music world who consider themselves to sort of be activist lefties. They really don't like it at all. I think mainly it's because they don't have any money. If they were to suddenly become very, very wealthy with their music, I think that they would talk a lot less about income disparity. If any of them had an opportunity to go record with, I don't know, James Taylor or something like that, and they were going to then have large houses and vacation on Martha's Vineyard henceforth, I don't think they'd be quite as focused on erasing the income disparity between people who now make what they make as struggling folk singers and people who make something like what James Taylor makes as a well-established, very rich guy. But in the last few days, there are two movies that are out right now. The Wolf of Wall Street, Martin Scorcese movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and the other one is American Hustle. That's Christian Bale, those guys. Jennifer Lawrence, I think her name is, And you know that one. Amy Adams. I saw that one last weekend. And then last night, although I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit it, I saw Wolf of Wall Street online. It popped up online on a site that I sometimes go to, which will post movies for basically just a few days. And what they are is they're Academy copies, usually from Academy members in foreign countries, because usually they'll have, Spanish subtitles or something like that on them, or sometimes even something weird like, Tagalog or something like that, subtitles, because, there's so many voting Academy members living in the Philippines. But anyway, it's always pretty weird. They've usually got subtitles. This one didn't. This was a clean copy. It was a studio copy. It wasn't anything that was bootlegged or swiped out of a movie theater. But it was The Wolf of Wall Street, and both movies, American Hustle and Wolf of Wall Street, are about sort of scoundrels who just live to make the big bucks, and they, of course, are the heroes of the movie. And this is, they're both really interesting movies. I particularly liked American Hustle. I found it to be really warm on a lot of levels. I really ended up liking the people and caring about the people a lot. And I thought it really had a better message. But, it's a little hard to get away from the fact that the main characters, we get to know them when they are outright stealing from people at the time that we're supposed to be, getting to know the main characters. They are just outright stealing. Hang on a second. And we do, in fact, bond with them. That's how movies work. It doesn't really matter what kind of scoundrel our main character is, because they become our point of view character. And even though we are looking at them as they move around through life, it's their experiences that are influencing the storyline, and therefore their experiences become, in a sense, our experiences. We start identifying with them. And this is the whole anti-hero thing that became popular when I was a kid in the 70s, when suddenly, movies like, Midnight Cowboy and things like that, where we were no longer sort of professing goodness in movies and as being a qualifier for someone being the point of view character and the hero. It didn't really matter anymore after, once the anti-hero movies came in. And I'm fine with that on an artistic level. But I think we have to understand that has its cost. And if people are going to stand very strongly in opposition to something, for instance, guns. If you're going to say, oh my gosh, it's the NRA is these horrible people, they don't care about people's lives because something like Sandy Hook happens, and the guns themselves, or at least the availability of those guns, is immediately blamed by all the people on that side of the political spectrum, which will remain nameless because it's a Saturday. And I don't feel like busting anybody's balls directly. But it's no secret that Hollywood votes almost in a block for that party that I'm talking about. And they are also the ones who want to get rid of guns, and they also are the ones who want to really get rid of rich people. And well, they don't want to get rid of rich people, but what they want to do is keep telling us that it's not valid to be rich for the sake of being rich. You're supposed to have your share, which will be, decided by them, that what your proper share will be, and you should be happy to have that. And I'm a poor guy. I don't have much money, and I have very little interest in money. I really don't like hypocrisy. And when you're making movies and making a killing off movies that are about glorifying violence, as in all the Rambo films, this is probably drowning me out, all the Rambo films and Commando and all those different movies, Those are the movies that first introduced us to the AK-47 and the AR-15. These guns that are now seen to be the ones that are the assault weapons. We have to get rid of these specific guns. Well, we wouldn't know about those guns at all if they hadn't been shown to us repeatedly by people with these movies. They look badass. They've got a visual aspect to them. And, you know, they're no different in killing potential from, you know, Dad's 30-06, which leaned against the closet wall all those years when you were a kid. They're no different. In fact, I've shot a 30-06 at an old gas can once out in the desert, and from about 50 yards, it turned that gas can inside out with impact. It blew a hole in it so heavy that it shredded it and turned it inside out, so it was all bloomed out like this. You can't do that with an AK or an AR-15. They aren't that high of caliber bullets. They don't hit with quite that impact. They're no more dangerous, and in fact less dangerous. And a very small number of gun deaths are really attributed to them. Mostly gun deaths are handgun murders in the inner city between one criminal and another criminal, or at least another perceived criminal. That's the way it really plays out. But when you come to assigning blame for it, I've got a couple pieces on guns on my essay site, which is Off the Reins. One of them is called, the site is called Off the Reins, like a horse being off the reins. One of them is, I think it's called On Sandy Hook, which is directly about the Sandy Hook thing. And the other one is called Big Black Scary Gun, which is about the obsession on the left with these particular guns. Where I make the case that in one essay that its values entirely, that has caused people to suddenly think it's appropriate to end their lives violently after killing a bunch of children. That to them, that makes sense. They've figured a way to work that into a scenario that makes sense. It's all about status, in my view. It's all about making your mark on the world. Anyway, not to get off on that. But when you are an industry that makes money off glorifying these things, you got to cop to that. And when you're making money off glorifying wild accumulation of wealth and all the debauchery that goes with it, you got to cop to that as well. And you got to realize you're putting those images into people's minds in the same way that the rappers really took to Scarface. And not because it's a morality tale. Of course he gets killed in the end. Of course it's supposed to be a morality tale against all this stuff. But it doesn't really play out that way. It really is just them showing you all this stuff. And people are going to come away from this, viewing these movies, thinking about the 175-foot yacht and how much they want it. A lot more than, oh my gosh, he sure got his comeuppance because he was greedy. So this is Hollywood trying to have it both ways, and trying to show these people and bond us to them and show all the wild adventures and the raw crazy sex with hot chicks and the drugs and all the goings-on, but don't do this. But we're telling you don't do this. And then we're going to, in our outward lives, in our voting lives, we're going to tell you that it's inappropriate for anybody to want more than they should want. They should want, they should be in business for the worker, So I think they're both good movies, but viewed through that lens. My phone doesn't always ring. Every 15 minutes, I'm using the alarm on this thing. So I think I'm just about out of time on the machine there. So let me look. Let me turn it around. Probably haven't. Probably have to wrap it up. Anyway, I got back over here safely, and I'll tease this out at a later date. The sort of hypocrisy of all of this stuff. All right, that's enough for me.